Welcome to the free training session, where I will introduce you to Blazor, an innovative framework that allows you to create modern web applications, including single-page applications, all without requiring any knowledge of JavaScript. I will present a significant revolution for C developers, namely Blazor from .NET 8, which has improved all previous shortcomings and is now the best choice for developers, especially those working with C# and .NET. Importantly, I will be available via email throughout the entire training and later until around midnight. If the training materials are not clear, you might have some additional questions or doubts, especially regarding Blazor, ASP, .NET Core, or learning programming in general. Just email me with your question, and you will definitely receive a detailed response within a few minutes. I will gladly answer any of your questions or concerns. My email is below the recording. In that case, we can start. Please watch the entire recording from beginning to end. And now I invite you to my presentation. I will switch to my computer screen, show my presentation, and we will go through all the topics one by one. For the next approximately 60 minutes, I will introduce you to Blazor and go through the entire agenda of our training. Then, at the end, for about 10 minutes, I will propose something extra for some of you, but more on that later. The plan for this training: first, I will introduce you to Blazor, explain what Blazor is, and what its main advantages are. I will show you what writing code in Blazor looks like and demonstrate how simple it is. We will compare Blazor code with ASP.NET Core MVC application code, where we currently create web applications in C#. Then we will move on to practice, creating our first application in Blazor. I will show you how to create a modal window in Blazor without writing any JavaScript code, so all the code will be in C#. I will also show you a more advanced project. We will create a Kanban board in Blazor, applying drag and drop and note display, all in Blazor using only C# without JavaScript. Finally, there will be a small surprise and a bonus for all participants of this training. Alright, we can start. First, a few words about myself for those who don't know me yet. My name is Kazik, and I am a C# .NET programmer and a programming enthusiast. From the beginning of my career, I have been writing all my applications on the .NET platform. I also work as a freelancer, creating applications for my clients in C# on the .NET platform. Additionally, I am the author of the blog Code with Kazik, aimed at C# .NET programmers. I am also the creator of applications such as Create an Online Store, CRM for the company, and Blog in 5 Minutes, which have helped me build passive income. Besides that, I have created training programs like Become a .NET Programmer, SaaS Application School, ASP.NET Core School, and Blazor School. Alright, let's get down to specifics. What is Blazor? Blazor is a new, rapidly developing framework by Microsoft. It is part of ASP.NET Core and allows for the creation of modern web applications, both SP and MPA, entirely in C#. It is also possible to create applications that have some pages built in MPA and others in SPA. This gives us complete flexibility and a very versatile framework to meet various client requirements. Until now, SPA applications were mainly built using JavaScript frameworks like Angular, React, or Vue. If you wanted to create such applications, besides your base language C#, you had to learn JavaScript, which, to put it mildly, is not beloved by developers. So, Blazor is a great choice for C# developers, allowing you to create complete web applications solely in C#. Moreover, in my opinion, Blazor, starting from .NET 8, surpasses these JavaScript frameworks and will likely get even better over time. It's worth noting that if you need to use JavaScript or ready-made JavaScript libraries for some reason, Blazor also provides that capability. After all, many JavaScript libraries have already been created, and if you need them, you can use them in Blazor as well. What are the biggest advantages of Blazor? The ability to create SPA applications. With Blazor, you can create modern SPA applications that run on the client side. Code sharing between client and server. You can also share code between the client and server sides, meaning you can write the same code for both the server and the client. In both layers, you use the C# language. You create loops, conditional statements, and all the logic on both the back-end and front-end sides in the same way. You can also leverage your skills and experience here. You don't have to duplicate code on the client and server sides. Unlike with Angular, here you base everything on the same model. Mainly working in C#, you primarily work in your main language, which is C#, no JavaScript code. You don't have to learn JavaScript. Learning 2 languages is very difficult. The ability to use JavaScript. However, if you need to, you can also use ready-made JavaScript libraries. Blazor has also given us a gateway here, and you can use it, shared components. Blazor allows you to create components that can be used and reused in many places. Once created, a component can be used in many places in your application, and you can also use it in your other applications. This also increases productivity. Easy to learn. If you know C# syntax, learning Blazor will be very quick for you. Easy start in front end for C#. You no longer have to worry about front end frameworks. You know C# and can create the front end of applications. The possibility of working as a full stack developer. You don't have to limit yourself to just the backend. Since we create both backend and front end in C#, you can create complete applications yourself and become a full stack developer. An ideal choice for freelancers. You don't need to learn multiple languages or frameworks. You can create complete applications in C# with Blazor, based on ASP.NET Core. Blazor is based on ASP.NET Core, so if you know ASP.NET Core, you'll find many common topics here. Microsoft is focused on its development. When Microsoft takes on something, they always do it well. They are currently very focused on developing Blazor, as evidenced by the latest changes, so this is definitely a safe path and the project will not be abandoned. Gaining popularity. Thanks to Microsoft treating Blazor very seriously, you can see its growing popularity. A larger community provides more support, the creation of new libraries, tools, and faster help in case of problems. Faster job finding. Choosing Blazor can also be a good idea for those who are just entering IT and want to become developers. Blazor's popularity is just growing, and what does that mean? There is less competition in the market, so it can be a good choice to help you find your first job. Blazor ready for production. I use Blazor in several applications in production and confirmed that even in earlier versions it was ready for production, especially now with .NET 8, where some of Blazor's flaws have been fixed. I definitely recommend this path. So much for the advantages of Blazor. Now I wanted to show you the simplicity of Blazor. Let's compare the same code written in ASP.NET Core, MVC and Blazor. Let's start with asynchronous calls. How was data deletion implemented in ASP.NET Core MVC without refreshing the page? Let's analyze this example on the right side. Here we have a standard button and an on-click event bound to the delete task function. Then this function had to be created in JavaScript, and here it is below, where we call Ajax, pass the method type, the endpoint to be called, pass the data, and specify what should happen if everything succeeds, meaning we need to redraw our table in the view, call some notification indicating the task was deleted, and also specify what should happen if an error occurs. How does it look in Blazor? Here, the HTML code looks similar, but the on-click event is directly bound to the delete task method, which is already created in C#. So we don't need JavaScript code here, and we create the delete task method, call our repository, delete the task by ID, display a message, and refresh the data in the view. As you can see, this code is much simpler, much shorter, and most importantly, we don't need to use JavaScript here. Similarly, if we want to display, for example, available photos from the application on a modal window or build any HTML based on a string, this is how the implementation looks in ASP.NET Core MVC. Of course, we create everything here in JavaScript, and as you can see, it is quite unreadable and easy to make a typo or error here. So, we have a variable here where we will build the string. Then we loop through all these photos in a for loop and concatenate such complicated code connections to build our div, which we then display in the view. And how will it look in Blazor? Here we will create a simple image component and just call it in C# in a for each loop. We will go through all the photos and pass the address and URL of the photo and the name of the photo to our component. And this code will look like this and is much more readable and simpler than it was before in ASP.NET Core MVC. So as you can see, Blazor's syntax is much simpler, more readable and more user-friendly. It's time to move on to practice. We will now create our first Blazor application, and I will show you the basic syntax and principles. So, I have now launched Visual Studio 2022, and we will create a new project. In the search bar, type Blazor, and we will create a Blazor WebAssembly standalone app project, which is a regular Blazor WebAssembly application. Let's move on to the next step. Let's name the application Blazor App Webinar. Next. And here we will create the application in .NET 8, and we can add a few sample pages. So, I am creating such a project. And maybe to start, I will run this project and then I will show you how it looks in the code. So I press Ctrl F5, I run the application, and this is how our application looks. And you will notice that right from the start, we have a quite user-friendly application template. So here on the left side, we have our menu and we have the main page where we just display some message. Next, we have the counter page, and if you click on this button, you'll notice that the counter increases without any page refresh and of course without using JavaScript code. This code here is entirely written in C#, and we also have some table display, meaning we fetch data, in this case from a JSON file, and display it in our application. When you navigate between these pages, you'll notice that the entire page isn't refreshed. Only the content on the right side of our application changes. This means we don't have to fetch the entire page from the server each time, and this is an example of how a typical SPA single page application works. Let's see how it looks in the code and how our project is structured. Here we have the standard program.cs file with the configuration and launch of our application. We also have the standard www root folder. However, in this case, unlike ASP.NET Core MVC, we have our index.html file with the template of our page. But what interests us the most at this moment is the components folder, where we have the components on which the website is built. So we have our main application template. On the left side, we have our menu, and in the main section, we have the top section with the about link and the main body section. So in this template, instead of the AE body, our components from the pages folder will be displayed, which we will get to shortly, and we have the use of the nav menu component, which is defined here. And here we have the links to various subpages. So this is the sidebar with the links in our application. Okay, now let's move on to our pages. We have the home Razor page, which really only defines the path under which it is available, the page title, and here we have a header and a message. So there is nothing complicated here. However, more interesting things are found in the counter component on the counter page. And look, it is available at the address counter. Here we have the standard page title and a header. Notice what we have here. We display the current value of our counter in a paragraph, and this value that we display here is nothing more than a field created in C# code. So we are not using JavaScript here, but C# code. We have a field and display its value in a paragraph. Then we have a button that, when clicked, calls the increment count method, which simply increases the value of the current count field by 1. And thanks to this, everything updates nicely without refreshing the page. As I showed you, notice that everything works correctly. Great. And here we also have the weather page where, in addition to defining the page and URL address, we inject an HTTP client implementation using dependency injection. This allows us to fetch some data from the server in C# code. In this example, the data is fetched from a JSON file, but nothing prevents us from calling an external API. So, when the page loads, we populate the list, our field here, with data from this JSON file. If the list is null, we display a loading message. Once the data is fetched from the server, the loading message is replaced by a table displaying the data. If we artificially increase the task delay, you can better see how it works. We'll add a 3-second delay, rebuild the application, and now notice that when I go to the weather page, the loading message appears first, and after 3 seconds, the table appears, replacing the loading message. We artificially extended the time so you could see the message. Great, that's enough of a general introduction. It's time to move on to practice. We will now implement a modal window in Blazor without using JavaScript. We will create our own component, which will be a modal window that can accept various parameters, such as the title of the modal window, content, and also handle events for the buttons that will be triggered when the confirm or close button is clicked. Such modal windows are used in almost every application, so it's worth knowing how to make them. They are often used to confirm an action, for example, when a user deletes data and needs to confirm if they really want to perform such an operation, as it might turn out that they clicked the delete button by mistake and such an operation cannot be undone later. Regarding the appearance of the modal window itself, we have several options. We can create it from scratch in HTML and CSS, but we can also use a bootstrap modal window just without the JavaScript functions. Everything should work without JavaScript, only in C#. We will use the first solution and create the modal window from scratch. So let's go back to Visual Studio. We won't be adding a new project here, but we'll add a call to this modal window on our main page. So first, let's add a new component to the components folder. So add a Razor component. We can name it Modal. A good practice is to separate the view code, which is the HTML we write here in Razor, from the C# code, so we can add a new class with the same name, i.e. modal.razor, but let's add the .cs extension and mark this class as partial, which allows us to create the code behind for this view. So here we have the modal.razor view and modal.razor.cs. We have the C# code, and thus we have separated these layers. Additionally, we can add a dedicated CSS file. We just need to add the .ccss extension, so modal.razor.css, and here we will have dedicated CSS styles only for this component we just created. And now, to not prolong this training, I have already added the HTML code here, which I will now explain to you. So here we have the main div view, which contains another div inside, and inside we have, first of all, a span, which will be our X to close the modal window, and it will be at the top right corner. Then we have the title of this modal window, which will be a header. Then we have a paragraph where we will want to display some content, and at the bottom we have 2 buttons. cancel, and confirm, which is the yes button here. Additionally, I added a few classes to refer to these elements in the CSS code. Okay, so let's add those CSS styles that I prepared earlier so that the modal window looks nice on all screens. If you want, you can email me and I'll share the CSS code with you so you don't have to implement everything from scratch. Alright, we have the HTML and CSS code prepared, and now we can display the modal window on our main page, home.razor, and see how it looks at this moment. If you want to invoke a component, you just need to refer to it by the name of our component including the modal, and this way we will display this modal window on our page. So, I start our application, I am on the main page, and this is how our modal window looks. As I mentioned, here we have a button to close the modal window. Here we will dynamically enter the title, here the content, and we will also want to inform the user whether the cancel button was clicked or the confirm button was clicked. Okay? And besides that, we still need to implement the display and hiding of this window, because at the moment we are not able to hide it. So, we can start with that. Let's go back to our component, but first let's add a bool property named show to the C# code and mark this property as a parameter that we can pass to this component. Then, in the view, let's add a conditional statement. And here, if show is true, we want to display this modal window. Otherwise, we don't want to display any code. By setting the value of this property, we will be able to control our modal window. We will be able to display and hide it, and now in the home view, we can add a button. To make it faster, I'll copy the button from the counter page, paste it here, and do the same with the C# code to avoid prolonging it. We'll place the C# code in the same file and add a method that will be called when the button is clicked, showModal. Let's name our method showModal and add a label for the button, showModal window. Now let's add a private bool field showDialog in the main page code, which we want to be initially set to false. When we click the showModal window button, we want to set showDialog to true. Great, and now if we want to pass a parameter to our modal component, we can do it here, show equals, and here we can pass the value of our showDialog field, which controls whether the modal window is displayed or hidden. So I'll run our application now and see if it works as expected. We're on the main page of our application. By default, the modal window is hidden, but if we click the show modal window button, the modal window appears. Great, so far everything is working as expected. And we still need to handle these two buttons and the content entered in the modal window. So let's go back to Visual Studio and to the modal component in the C# code. We want to be able to input the title of the modal window as well as its content. So we'll add additional parameters, title and body, and we want to display the values of these parameters in the appropriate place in our view, in our modal window. So to start, this will be the title here. And in the content, we'll display the value of the body property. We can set these properties right away when calling, meaning we want to pass confirm as the title and are you sure you want to delete as the body. Okay, and besides that, we also need to handle these events, meaning we need to specify what should happen when our buttons are clicked. So we add another property, event callback, and the type of object that will be passed. In this case, it will be mouse event args, and here we have the first event, on cancel, and this will be the parameter, and we'll do the same for the second event, on accept. Great, now we need to hook into these events, including for the cancel button on click event, we want the on cancel parameter to be triggered, and for the confirm button, the on accept parameter. Similarly, if the span, which is the cross at the top right, is clicked, we also want the on cancel method to be triggered, which will be passed as a parameter. That's it for the modal window code. When calling our modal window, we will create these methods that need to be triggered. So, in private void modal accept mouse event args, this will be the method that gets triggered upon accepting the modal window, and here the method that gets triggered upon closing the modal window. In both cases, we primarily want to close the modal window, so we set showDialog to false. And here, after accepting, we will want to trigger some logic. And of course, we need to pass these methods as parameters to our component. So onAccept equals the modal accept method, and onCancel equals the modal cancel method. This means we pass the appropriate methods as parameters to the modal window, which will be called upon accepting the command, clicking the yes button, and here the modal cancel method, which will be called when the X button is clicked on the modal window, closing the window, or cancel. Great, and to check if we have correctly handled these buttons, let's add one more field here, private bool modal accept, and set the value of this field to true inside the modal accept event. And now, on the view, if modal accepted is true, we will display a paragraph, the operation has been approved. And let's see if everything is actually working for us. So, we launch the application. We are on the main page. First, I click to show the modal window and close it here with the X. The window has been closed and notice that nothing is displayed here, no message. Similarly, if I click the cancel button here, nothing happens either. However, if I click the yes button, you will notice that a message appears here saying, operation has been confirmed. So all these events are correctly triggered. We have also correctly passed the page title here, as well as the content displayed in this modal window. So everything works according to our expectations. Thus, in this way, without using JavaScript, we managed to create a pretty cool component that we can also use in various places in our application, as well as in our other applications. We can move on to the next task. This task will be a bit more complicated, but we will definitely manage it. We will create a new component, which will be a so-called Kanban board, a board that holds various nodes, and you can place these nodes in 3 columns. The first column is for new nodes. The second column is for active nodes, meaning we move a node or task that we are currently working on to this column. And the third column is for completed tasks, where completed nodes or tasks will be placed. You can name it however you like. So we have 3 columns, each containing a list of tasks, depending on their status. And now, an important thing, you can move these tasks between columns using drag and drop. This means you can drag a task from one column to another with your mouse, and the task status should be updated. We will do this as simply as possible. Our model will have only 2 properties, description and status. We won't introduce more properties here because it's clear that such a component can be developed very broadly. But that's not the point here. Let's focus on the most important thing, which is moving tasks from one column to another. And of course, we won't be using JavaScript code here, so we can continue working on our project. We don't need to create a new project, we will simply add a new tab here. Okay, to start, let's add a new folder called Models to our project, and inside it, we'll first create a new file called state. This will be an enum that contains information about the different statuses of our tasks. So, we have statuses like new, active, and closed. We can also add display descriptions here if you want to show descriptions in another language. Great. Next, we'll add another model called item, and here we'll create 2 properties, description and state. Excellent. Let's mark this field as required and display an error message if this field is not filled out in the form. So, the description field is required. Great, so we have our models ready. Now we can move on to creating new components. First of all, we will need a main page where our columns will be displayed. This will be the Kanban board component. Okay, let's add the C# code right away, which will also be useful. Let's mark this class as partial and remove the C# code from the view. Okay, so the Kanban board will be the main page that will be displayed, but in addition to that, we will have a second component called Kanban item, which will be a single column. So we add Kanban item razor to the components folder, and let's also add a CO file and a CSS file, as we will want to add some CSS styles there. We mark the CO classes with the keyword partial to avoid any errors. And we can also add a new link in the nav menu under which our Kanban board will be displayed. So the Kanban board will be available at the address Kanban. Great. And now, in the Kanban board view, let's add a page and the address where this page should be displayed, which means we need to have the same address as in our sidebar panel, which is Kanban. We can set the page title to board and the H1 header to board as well, and below that, we will want to display 3 columns with tasks. Okay, we can also run the application and see if it has been added to our menu. So we have a new Kanban board button here, we click it, and we have our board. So far, everything matches. We will start the implementation with our Kanban item component. First, we will want to display 3 columns on our page, so let's divide the screen into 3 parts, each column taking up 1/3 of the space. Next, we will display a header, which is the status of the column, and this status will be a parameter that we can pass to this component. So, state, but as you remember, it's an enum, and we want to display the value of the display attribute. Therefore, we need to add a helper method that will convert this enum to the value of the name attribute. So, I will add a new folder called extensions to my project and a class called enum extensions, and to save time, I will paste the code for the getDisplayName method here, which will return the value of the name attribute based on the enum. As I mentioned, for each of these enums, we will want to display the value of the display attribute. Alright, so we'll call this method on this enum as well. Add the appropriate using statement so that there is no mistake. Great, now everything matches. So we have the header, then we will want to display it. Column, and it will simply be a div inside this column. We will display all tasks which belong to it. We'll also have to do it here in C#. Add another parameter. And of course, this state will be a parameter that can be passed to our component. And this is exactly where we will want to add another one. The parameters will be the items themselves, such as notes or tasks, also passed to this component. And that's exactly in the for each. We will iterate through these notes. We are interested in the notes, but only those with a status, our column. Great, so here we will display tasks. Let's add a few more classes here to make it look nice. For the entire column, we will add the class dropZone, bglight, which is a bootstrap class. We will set padding on all sides and vertical margins. Additionally, we will add a border, border1, and rounded. For the dropZone class, we will add it in CSS and set the minimum height of the column to 30 rems, because if there are no tasks in our column, I still want the column to be visible so that I can drag other tasks into it. I need to set a minimum height for the column. As for the div for notes, I will add the class draggable and the alert class to make it look nice. I will also want to add a few classes in C# depending on the status. For example, if the status is new, I want to display an orange alert. If it is active, then a blue color, and if the status is completed, then a green color. So, I will need an auxiliary field here. Let's add this field in the C# code right away. So now, I want to set this field appropriately based on the state parameter. That means if the status is new, I want to set this field as an alert warning, which is a bootstrap class that will make the task appear with an orange background. Similarly, I need to do this for different statuses. For active, I want it to be blue, so alert primary, and for completed, I want it to be green, so success. Great, and one of these values will be displayed here in this place instead of this field, meaning each task will have the appropriate color. Great. Besides that, I also need to set draggable to true here, so that I can grab this task and move it to another column. Great. And in this div, I want to display the description of the given task, and here I also have this draggable class. So I wanted to display the appropriate cursor in CSS so that the user knows they can grab this task and drag it to another column. Okay, so now we need to hook into various events, and for the task, we want to have the onDragStart event, meaning if the user grabs the task, we want to execute a method in C# code. We also want to call the onStartDragHandler method and pass the task data to this method, so we want the onStartDragHandler method to be called. Similarly, if we later drop the task on a column, we also want to be informed about it, so we want the onDropHandler method to be called on the column when a task is dropped on it. Additionally, we need to set onDragOver as event prevent default here to verify the behavior of this event in this way. Great, so we also need to add the onDropHandler method, but we don't pass any parameters here. Now let's think about what we really want to do after calling these methods. In this section, we want to pass this information to the parent component, which will handle these methods appropriately. Therefore, just as we did for the Modal window, we need to add a new event callback parameter here, where the appropriate parameter will be passed. This is how it will look for the onDrop method, and similarly for the onStartDrag method, where we pass the item. And here we need to call these methods inside our methods. So in onStartDragHandler, onStartDragInvokeAsync, and we pass the item, while in onDropHandler, onDropInvokeAsync, and we pass the state. And that's basically it for this Kanban item component. Now we return to Kanban board, and here we will want to use our components. So let's add a div, class row, and set the margins vertically to 4. And here we will want to have 3 columns, so Kanban item, 3 different columns. The first state is new, the second will have the status active, and the third column will have the status completed. Great! Next we will want to pass a list of our tasks here, so let's create such a list in C# code. So list of items equals new. And in the onInitialize method, we can initialize this items list. To speed things up, I have already prepared a few elements. So we have a few elements in our items list: user login, new status, user registration, active status, invoicing completed, and payments completed. Now we pass these elements to this component. So items equals items for each column. We pass all tasks here, and these tasks will be displayed accordingly depending on the status of the given task. And we have already handled this in the Kanban item. Great. And we need to pass 2 parameters to the Kanban item, which are methods that should be called appropriately when a task is started to be dragged and when it is dropped on a column. So in Kanban.board, razor.ccs, we will add two new methods, private void onStartDrag and onDrop. Here we have another parameter, great, and now we need to capture which task was grabbed, and if it is dragged to another column, we need to update its status. So let's add another helper field, private item, current item. And now if the user grabbed a task, we want to set this current item field to the parameter from this method. So, in current.item we have information about which task was grabbed, and in the onDrop method we want to change the status of that task to the status of the column it was dropped into. Great. And we need to appropriately link these methods here. So onDrop equals onDrop, meaning this is a parameter that we bind with the method in the Kanban board, and similarly onStartDrag equals onStartDrag. Great, we do the same linking for the other columns, and that's basically it. Now we run the application and verify if everything works. So we are on our new Kanban board page, and notice that we indeed have three columns here, new, active, and completed. And in the appropriate colors, we have tasks here. Now if you hover over a task, notice that the cursor changes, and we can indeed grab the task and drop it into another column. For example, I move the user login task to the active column, and notice that the status has indeed changed. The task is now displayed in the middle column, and its color also changes. If I move it further, everything still works, so I can freely change statuses and drag tasks between columns. To make our application even more realistic, we can add a simple form here and allow the user to create a new task. So, we are in the Kanban board, and let's quickly add a form. Above the board, we will place a new div. We can also set margins here, vertically to 4. Let's set the header to new note. Inside we will place our form, taking up half the width of the page. So edit form. We need a model here, so in C# we will create a private item called new item, which equals new. Great, and we will pass this model to the form. So model equals new item. We will bind it to the onValidSubmit event, and we want the save method to be called after the form is submitted. So private void save. Okay, let's add data validation here, using data annotations validator, and display a validation message. We will add an input field. We will use the Blazor input text component and bind the value to newItem.description. The Bootstrap class form control will be added. Let's add a placeholder so the user knows what to enter, so placeholder equals description. Okay, let's add a button, our submit button, labeled save. We will add a few Bootstrap classes, btn, btn primary, and btn lg. And to the entire div, we need to add the input group class to display it nicely, and a bottom margin of 3. Great, so we have bound this input to the description of our item, and now let's move on to the save method. If we click the save button, we want to add a new item to our list of elements, which will have the description set to new item description, and we will also set its status to new by default. Additionally, we will initialize it to clear the data of our element. Okay, so we have quickly created a form here. Let's run the application and verify if it actually works. As you can see, the form we just created is displayed at the top. If I add a new task here, for example a printing PDF, and click save, you will notice that the task has been created here. We can add a few more tasks, and as you can see, all these tasks are correctly added to the first column. Of course, we can also move these tasks to the subsequent columns, so our application works according to our assumptions, and everything was created in C# code in Blazor. I hope the last 60 minutes of training were valuable for you, and that it was time well spent. Unfortunately, I can't cover all the topics and teach Blazor programming in such a short time. So if you found this time valuable, I'm very glad and thank you for your attention. However, if you want more, I've also prepared something special for you. If you want to learn how to create advanced applications in Blazor and develop your skills in this area under my guidance, if you want to act quickly and use your time effectively, then I have something good for you. Just today, registration opened for my latest program, Blazor School. It is a 10-module practical online training where we will focus on learning the Blazor framework from scratch, and I will show you how to create complete, advanced, and modern applications in C# without using JavaScript. Here is what the program looks like and what it includes. The first module of the training is a general introduction to both the training itself and to Blazor. In the initial lessons, I will try to give you an idea of how we will work throughout the training so that you can get the most value out of it. In the following lessons, we will start with the theory related to Blazor itself. I don't like theory myself. I prefer to focus on practice, and that's how we will work throughout the training. But we need to go through a minimum of theory. I will explain what Blazor is, its advantages and disadvantages, why I believe it is currently the biggest game changer on the market, and why many companies will soon be convinced of it, further increasing its popularity. I will also introduce you to the most important concepts of the basic types of applications we will be creating. In the second and third modules, we will move more into practice, create our first applications in Blazor, and I will present you with the basics related to Blazor. Everything will be shown through practical examples. You will also receive your first homework assignment to reinforce the knowledge you have gained. The fourth module is about components, which is a very important topic for developers creating applications in Blazor. In Blazor, practically everything is a component, like building blocks, and we will use these blocks to build our applications. Components are a major strength of Blazor. Mastering the topics in this module will be very important, because we will build all our applications on this knowledge later. The fifth module covers forms, something we will open in every application. I will show you how to approach creating advanced forms in Blazor. We will discuss the most commonly used form components step by step. I will show you how to save data, validate data, and present best practices. The sixth module, very important, we will create a complete SPA application in Blazor WebAssembly. I will show you the main principles of creating such applications. I will also show you one of my production applications, which was created 100% in Blazor and works flawlessly. We will also create a more advanced application in Blazor. I will discuss the most important elements of application development. I will also show you how to connect Blazor with an API, what architecture to use, and how to implement CRUD operations, i.e. create, read, update, and delete on a database. In the seventh module, we will discuss the most important changes in .NET 8 and the new best project type that is worth using from this version, as it eliminates many of the drawbacks of Blazor from older versions. I will present the most important changes and basic concepts and issues that you need to know if you want to create the most optimal applications. This will allow you to use the best version of the framework for your client's specific requirements, all of course with examples. The eighth module is about creating an advanced application in Blazor Web App, which is the most optimal Blazor project. We will discuss the architecture of the Web API project, and I will show you how to implement pagination, filtering, and sorting of data. Additionally, we will cover several advanced application improvements to make the application reliable. I will also show you how to use browser storage and implement payments. The ninth module is also a gem. Primarily, I will show you how authentication and authorization work in Blazor. We will expand our application from the previous module and implement many useful features that you can also use in your applications. We will implement user registration, login, email confirmation, password reset, and you will be able to copy and use all of this in your future applications, as this always forms the backbone of any application. In the 10th module, I will show you how to make your life easier by using ready-made components. I will show you several advanced and commonly used components that you can use in your applications. I will show you how to use a ready-made admin panel, how to integrate Blazor with Bootstrap, how to use ready-made data grids to display data, how to use a calendar, charts, HTML editor, forms, and much more. Here is the plan for the entire training. As you can see, there are many interesting topics, and here is what you will get by joining the Blazor School in this edition. Access to the Blazor School, which is a 10-module training, on-demand access 24/7, so you always have access to each lesson. This is a lifetime access. Pro guarantee, meaning if you don't like something, you can withdraw from the training, and I will refund 100% of your money. Additionally, a certificate of completion, mentor support, you can always count on my help. We are in constant email contact. Access to material updates. If new versions of Blazor are released, the material will also be updated. Access to a private group, where other participants of this training will also be, so we can also share experiences there. Homework. In most modules, you will have homework to do, which will help you further consolidate your knowledge. And in addition, you will also have access to a weekly dose of the most interesting materials. So I will share with you a weekly email with news in C#. The total value of this training, if we were to calculate these components separately, is $799, and that will be the price in the future. In this edition, however, the price will be significantly lower for you because we can operate at scale, allowing you to join this training at a lower cost. So it definitely won't be $799. Admittedly, we are just starting with the Blazor School and don't have any reviews yet, but here you can see plenty of positive reviews from people who have participated in my other trainings. You can read all these reviews at your leisure on the pages of my trainings. Here are more reviews. As you can see, all participants are very satisfied with my trainings and speak of them in the highest terms. So, to Blazor School in this edition, along with the entire package you see here, which includes Blazor School, on-demand access, pro guarantee, training completion certificate, mentor support, access to material updates, access to a private group, homework, and a weekly email with updates. You can join only in this edition at the incredibly low price of $349. This is the complete price for the entire package I described earlier. You can purchase the training with a VAT invoice. This is the gross price from which you can still deduct tax. The full description of the training is available at blazorschool.com. Save this address, but stay with me until the end because I have something else for you. Now you have two options. Option 1, do nothing and don't trust my work. Or option 2, invest in your better future. Furthermore, if you like the program, that's great. But if not, we will refund 100% of your money. You have a 14-day guarantee with me. Sign up today, and if you decide to cancel for any reason, let me know, and I will refund 100% of your investment. Besides that, in this edition, I have a bonus for you, which I mentioned at the beginning, namely a discount code. Enter the discount code BIRTHDAY when ordering and be one of the first 30 people to join under the best conditions. Registration for the current edition has just started, and only in this edition can you join for $349. The full course description is available at blazorschool.com, where you can also join under the best conditions. Enter the discount code BIRTHDAY when ordering or be one of the first 30 people, and you can join under the best conditions. It will never be cheaper. If there are future editions, the price will definitely go up. Registration for the current edition is only open until this Friday at 10 p.m. If you have any questions, feel free to contact me via email at kazikcodewithkazik.com. That's all. Thank you very much for your attention. I hope to see you at Blazor School. See you.